to the next video on indices laws. This time we're going to look at the 1 over n law. The 1 over n law states that if you have a number x and you raise it to a power 1 over n, which is a fraction, then you need to do the nth root of x. So for example, if the fraction was a half and this n here was a 2, then this n here would be a 2 and we'd be talking about the square root of x. If it was a 3, however, then we'd put a 3 here and we'd be talking about the cube root of x. If it was a quarter and we had a 4 here, then we'd have a 4 here and we'd be doing the fourth root of x. So if you have a fraction that's 1 over n, you look at the denominator of the fraction and that simply tells you what root of the number x you need to do. So in this first one here we've got a half and that's a 2, so we're talking about the square root of 36, and the square root of 36 we know is 6. This time though we've got a 3, so the fraction is a third. This means we're looking at the cube root of 125. So what number would you multiply by itself 3 times to get 125? Well, that's 5, because 5 times 5 is 25, times by 5 again is 125. And this time it's a 4 on the denominator, so we're looking at the fourth root of 81. And that happens to be 3, because 3 times 3 times 3 again and times 3 a fourth time gives you 81. So when you've got a fraction that's 1 over n, you simply do the nth root of that number. So if it's a 2 you do the square root, if it's a 3 you do the cube root, and if it's a 4 you do the fourth root. Here are some questions for you to try on this. If you pause, have a go at them, and then when you want the answers press play again and I'll tell you what they were. Okay, here are the answers then. For this first one, you need to do the square root of 49, and the square root of 49 is 7. It's the square root again on this, because it's a fraction a half, and the square root of 100 is 10. This time we need to do the cube root of 8, and the cube root of 8 is 2, because 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 again is 8. The cube root again for this one, because we've got a fraction 1/3, so the cube root of 729 is 9. And then the fourth root of 16, so what multiplied by itself 4 times gives you 16? Well, that's 2. And the fifth root of 32, what multiplied by itself 5 times gives you 32, and that's 2 again. Okay, here are some slightly harder questions using the 1 over n law. Now if you think back to when we did the bracket to the power law, that's going to come in useful here. So we've been asked to raise this whole thing to a power half. Now that does mean we need to use square root again. So if you square root the first number here, 16, you get 4. And that's going to give us the first bit of our answer. And if you think back to the bracket to the power law, when we deal with x to the 6 to the power a half, we are going to do the square root of that. But if you remember, you can simply multiply 6 times a half, and 6 times a half is just 3. So that's an easier way of approaching the question. You just get x to the power 3. And similarly, with y to the 10, well, what's half of 10? That's 5. So it's y to the power 5. So the answer to this question is simply 4, x to the power 3, y to the power 5. One thing to watch out for is that some people half this number 16 here and get 8. But you must remember you're doing the square root of all of these things. It just so happens that to square root something like x to the 6, you just half the power, and the same for y to the 10, you half the power. But square rooting 16 is not 8, it's 4, because 4 times 4 is 16. Okay, here are 3 of these in a similar way for you to have a go at. Press pause, write down your answers, and then press play, and I will take you through the correct ones. Okay, here are the answers. So first of all, we're going to deal with this number at the front, 81. We'll square root that. The square root of 81 is 9. And then we're just going to half the power of everything else in the question. So half the power of x to the 8 is x to the power 4, and half the power of y to the 6 is y to the 3. Now this next one, it's a power 1/3, and if you remember, that means we're going to cube root, not square root. So the cube root of 27 is 3. And then we're going to divide each of these powers by 3, because 6 times a third is the same as dividing by 3. So we get a to the power 2, because 6 divided by 3 is 2. And then b, we've got to do 12 divided by 3, that's 4. And the final one, it's a square root one again, so the square root of 9 is 3. And then half each of these powers, well, you've got p to the power 2, and then q to the power 2.5.